the topic for today is how to let go of guilt and remorse. So this was suggested by someone on the WhatsApp group a week ago. And I did speak to this a little bit at the end of the last talk as well, because it fitted in nicely. So you already know a little bit about this, but more could be said about this, right? So now, what do you think about your guilt and remorse? Anybody who doesn't have any guilt and remorse in their lives? It's actually good if you don't, because there are people, who do not have guilt and remorse, and because they have been actually good people, or they have seen and dealt with it and moved on. But some others, they love their guilt, they love their remorse, they feel good somehow for having guilt in their life. They somehow feel that when we feel guilty, it's somehow making up for the thing in some weird way. I don't know. There is that kind of feeling, which is why people sort of keep on feeling that guilty feeling. Sometimes, so nothing really important. If you ask the people, it's like, oh, it's just nothing. But some people would hold on to that guilt for years. It's really interesting because, all of these things, as we have these kinds of any kind of emotion, they also secrete into our blood all kinds of different neurotransmitters. Maybe we sort of get addicted to those feelings. I'm not sure what, but somehow, this is kind of almost like a habit that we think in this way when the mind is down. Yeah, this is the reason as well sometimes why these kinds of thoughts from so far away, not sometimes recent things, right? That we feel guilty for things done few decades ago and we still hold on to it. And sometimes they're really small things as well. It could be big things, it could be small things, but big or small, there is not really much point in keeping guilt. You need to do something about it. That's important. But just feeling guilty and continuing like that, that is actually hindering your progress and also taking you into a very difficult and dangerous path. So therefore, it is really important that we learn how to skillfully deal with our guilt and remorse. So I think the Pali word for guilt and remorse is uddacha. And this is one of the main hindrances. Yeah, uddacha, kukkucha. Sorry, the Pali word for guilt and remorse is kukkucha. Yeah, that's the word, kukkucha. And what happens is when you have guilt and remorse, you start worrying. And that worrying is the uddacha. So they are like a pair. They come up as the fourth hindrance, as uddacha kukkucha. It's translated in English as restlessness and worry. So it doesn't have that aspect, but the real thing that brings that restlessness and worry is the guilt and remorse in your mind. Yeah, that is the main one there. You can add other things about fear or any other forms of restlessness, but the main one as a hindrance there is that guilt and remorse and then worrying about it. And you can see this, right? So sometimes, at the end of the day, you try to meditate, you come and sit down to meditate. What happens? The whole day kind of reverberates inside of you, right? And if you have even snapped back at somebody, yeah, and that comes up and it doesn't feel good in your mind, right? You sort of regret about it. I shouldn't have done that. That was terrible. And you feel bad about it and you start worrying and you even proliferate about it. Oh, what could happen? And sometimes it was only a small thing, but in our mind, it starts to grow and grow and grow. The more you don't want it, the more you regret about it. It's like that anger eating demon. This could be the guilty eating demon. Similar kind of situation, right? Somehow it just grows. When you tell it to somebody else, somebody might laugh at it. Oh, that's just nothing. I mean, it's not something so bad, but this is the thing. Yeah, this is what we do to ourselves, and it really spoils our meditation. So, and this is important. Later, I will mention what the Buddha say about meditation psychology and the importance of removing regrets and guilt and remorse from your mind, because it sort of sits like a stumbling block, stopping you from meditating. And then you would think, oh my goodness, then do I have hope? Because like I said, each one of us have plenty of things that we are not very proud of ourselves, right? We have all done silly things at some point in our life, even as a kid or as a teenager, or at some point in our life, we have done things. Why is that? Anybody here who's a fully enlightened being? Or at least before you became fully enlightened, you may have done things, because this is the nature of a mind with defilements. This is why. So, to just make you feel good, if you don't know this already, even for the monastics, even for the monastics, the Buddha understands that they too are just trying, unless they're fully enlightened monastics, which is very rare in the world at the moment. They too are trying. And do you know how many precepts the monks have to keep? They have 227 precepts. And do you know how many precepts for the fully ordained nuns? 311, even more. Right? So that's lots of precepts, right? So we are bound to break some at times, either because we're tired, the defilements are strong, because of lack of mindfulness. Things do happen, But the point is not to then have guilt and remorse and regret and beat ourselves thinking I'm a terrible monk or a nun or whatever. There's no point. Anybody, for all of us, we will do things because as long as you're not fully enlightened, as long as there are defilements in the mind, they will sometimes take you over. And like I have mentioned plenty of times in the previous Dhamma talks as well, what did the Buddha say? When the mind is taken over by defilements, it's in the darkness. It's like you don't have eyes and your wisdom has departed. Again in Pali, Andhakarana, Achakkukarana, Panya Nirodhika. So these are the three things. So when you are in the dark, imagine right now the lights go out and it's in complete darkness. And if you're in a room full of people and you're trying to get out of the room because there's maybe even an emergency, will you be walking all over everybody, hitting onto the walls and doors and breaking things also? You will, because you can't see, right? You're all trying to walk, but you can't see because you're in the dark. But will you get upset about it because people are hitting on you and bumping onto you? No, because you understand nobody can see because it's so dark. Or if it was a blind person on the street who bumped onto you, will you get angry at that person? No, because you see they are blind, they can't see. That's why they bumped onto you, right? So the Buddha says when our mind is covered in defilements, we can't clearly see. And that is why later, when we see it, when our mind becomes a bit more peaceful, when the wisdom returns, thank goodness everything is impermanent. So our stupidity is also impermanent. It also passes by and we become a little bit less stupid and silly. At that time, you realize, oh, what I did was not so smart, not so great. So at that time, you feel bad. But then you say, oh, but at the time, I couldn't see. That's what I did. This is very common. You have said this in your life. So this is important to remember. Important to remember that we will make mistakes. Up until we are fully enlightened, we are bound to be making mistakes. One, because we have defilements, also because our mindfulness is not going to always be there. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's going to get low for various reasons, right? It's hard to maintain a high degree of mindfulness, at least up until the first level of stream entry. Up until that, it comes and goes, and sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. And when you're unmindful, the habits and instincts take over. And that is why sometimes things happen. And the most difficult thing is, I'm sure most of you can relate to this as well, like as you start practicing, you have a certain degree of mindfulness now. Still, you end up doing things that are a bit silly. But the problem there is you can see yourself doing it, but you can't stop yourself. Has that happened to you? It has happened to me. Sometimes you see you're about to do something, but you don't have enough strength of the mind or enough mindfulness or whatever the momentum of the habit or the defilement is so strong that while you can see, you still go ahead with it. And then you feel bad as well. But that also gives you an insight into how strong some of these unwholesome, bad momentums can be, because we have sort of valued them, appreciated them, and done them in the past for many lifetimes. We've been conditioned to do those as well by so many things. That's why, last talk and this go hand in hand, because we know, if we have been associating unwise people, and getting into bad habits, doing things, getting carried away. And if you've done much of something, it takes a while to sort of put on brakes and stop. But as your mindfulness is starting to come up, you will see yourself going down the same track, but sometimes unable to stop. So don't beat yourself up. This is cause and effect, right? It's conditioning. So it's really important to be gentle with yourself, right? It's really, really important to be patient. Yeah. And putting in the right courses slowly, slowly, and building up that mental strength, building up that mindfulness. Do that slowly, slowly, not straight away it's going to happen. But as you see, as you keep reflecting, as you keep reflecting on your the danger of these things, as you keep reflecting how harmful these things are, and also see the benefit of doing the opposite, when you do that slowly, slowly, these momentums will die down. And the best way to stop or change strong habits, unskillful habits, is the use of determination. So after you recognize that something that you repeatedly do that is unskillful, that you feel guilty or have regrets and remorse about, is to first of all see the danger, the damage, the harm for yourself, for others, and for both, and then making that very strong determination to stop. But giving yourself time, realizing some of these momentums are very strong, and I'm going to sort of that force, you might go under it, depending on how strong your mindfulness and how good the mind has developed, how much energy you have. So understanding that allows you to not to beat up yourself, right? This is very important. Otherwise, it adds another defilement on top of the already existing one. It's ill will and negativity and all of that on top of you, and that's double or triple the trouble. Yeah, that's not helpful. That's not skillful. So being gentle, being wise, being patient is very important on these occasions as you keep going. And then what do you do? So about this guilt and things. So sometimes some people, so I'm also going to bring up a few things. I'm not going to be able to tell all the things that everybody's having guilty about. There's endless things. And sometimes it's also funny to hear some things what people feel guilty for. Yeah. But there are some things that are very common for many, many people. One of the common things is parents. If you have ever been a parent, many parents have regrets and guilt about not being a good parent. I don't know why, but people think, oh, I could have been better. I have done better. And you have done so much good. Yeah. This is the time to remind that Ajahn Brahm's, Two Bad Brick story, for anybody who hasn't heard. That is, the story where he has built this amazing brick wall. And at the end of it, he sees that two bricks were out of alignment, and he could only see those two bricks that were out and not the 998 good bricks. Until the building supervisor pointed it out to him, he could only see the two bad bricks. So sometimes we are like that too. We see that two bad bricks in us and feel guilty and beat ourselves up saying, I have not been good enough. I could have done better. But please, it's so important to also look at the 998 good bricks in your life. what you have done, even for your kids, if you are a parent regretting and having guilt for not doing your best. And the other thing to remember there, did you ever go to school? Did people really teach you how to be the perfect parent? I don't think such a thing really exists. There is some parenting schools, but they don't teach you how to be a perfect parent. And who is a perfect parent anyway, right? It depends on your children, it depends on your relationship with them, and all of those things. So, it's all debatable. You learn it on the job. This is how it is. You learn, and even with your first kid, you think, now I know how to be. But with the second kid, you make other mistakes. So you learn from, because the kids are different, the relationship is different. So give yourself kindness. Yeah, don't beat yourself up and have guilt like that. I could have done, I should have done. And anyway, past, it's already finished, right? So what's the point in having guilt about what you couldn't do? Rather, try and do something about it. There's still, you're here. See, what else can you do now to do something good or better? While when you have, there's always plenty of good things, and always the best thing that you can give is affection. Yeah, affection to your people, to your children, to your partner, whoever who you, when you have guilt or remorse relating to that kind of issue, it's never too late. Yeah, never too late. You can always, affection sort of has an incredible power to soothe and heal many things, right? So it's really powerful for yourself. And when they feel your true affection, that will settle a lot of those kinds of stuff. So that's one kind of thing. And really, there is no need to really think like that. I should have done, I wasn't a good parent, whatever it is. At the time, that's all you could do, right? You have been doing what you could do. Remember, you too had defilements, maybe sicknesses, financial problems, other things, or you didn't know. You really couldn't see, didn't understand. That's why you did what you did. So there is no point having guilty for these kinds of stuff. And another very common thing, again, this comes up for women quite a lot. A lot of women have this very big secret in their life. This is in their heart and very, very difficult to bear. And that is having to have, having had an abortion at some point. Sometimes, for various reasons, they had to have an abortion. But they feel so bad about it. For the rest of their life, they have guilt, they have remorse. It's really hard for them to let it go. Sometimes they think in the superficial layer they have let it go, but deep inside there is still something hanging, because these are difficult sometimes. Again, there is really no point in having remorse and guilt and regrets about it. It's done now, yeah? Whether it's good or bad, why you did it, no point now thinking about too much about it. It's already past. And very important thing here is, whatever it is, if it was unskillful, acknowledging it, yeah, not justifying it in a bad way, saying everybody does it so I did it, or whatever, but saying, yes, that was probably not very skillful, but it's done now, so you accept that you have done it, acknowledge it, not deny it, not put it to a side, not try to forget about it in a bad way, but acknowledging it is important if it was really something that is unskillful. Acknowledge it, and also accept and understand. Yeah, not to beat up yourself, but understand there were causes and conditions that led to that point. So this is not a justification, but this is wisdom coming and allowing you to forgive yourself. Yeah, because after acceptance, the next point is to forgive yourself and forgive others. You can see why you did it, the conditional nature of how you reached and arrived at that point of doing something unskillful. Very often, if you look at it, now this is not just for an abortion, for any other unskillful thing that you have done, there is always some unwise person influencing you, manipulating you, or conditioning you as well. The association of somebody unskillful has also led to this. So when you see that, it's not to blame those people, not to blame yourself. That's what it was. And also karma, yeah? karmically how we were in front of these people. We had, it feels like you didn't have a choice at the time. If you were in the darkness, you never had a choice because your mindfulness was low. So this is what has happened. Because together with that, the other thing that is very common in the world, again, people later feel guilt and regrets and remorse, is kind of extramarital affairs, and this the third precept, relating to the third precepts, adultery or these kinds of stuff. This is also very common. And because of current world, access to people have become so easy because of social media and all of those things, no? So because of that, these kinds of stuff also happen very quickly. Before you know it, you've done something that you later regret and have guilt and remorse about. So first thing, of course, is to be alert, have mindfulness, and sort of protect yourself. But if that happened, then the next step is to really acknowledge, yes, I did this. I will have to bear the karmic consequences of these things, but I have to really now determine not to do it in the future. Now, this is really important. So this is how you really let go of any of these kind of really unskillful, harmful actions that you have done, that you feel bad about yourself. Yeah. So again, feeling bad isn't helpful, but rather making the determination after acknowledging, yes, that was unskillful, but making that determination, try not to do it, and making it really strong in your mind. Repeat it many times in the day. Find skillful ways so that it goes into your mindfulness, so that you will take care of in the future. And then after that, forgiving yourself by understanding the causality of this, yeah, how this happened. And then letting go is that moving forward. Understanding, thinking about future, past things is of no help. And then instead see, what can I do? Now, let's say if it was a guilt related to abortion, yeah, taking life. You can do so many things to give life, yeah. Help people who are pregnant, help little children. There's so many things where you can still help, yeah. And do good and make good merit, because this is also effective, because you know what happens with these unskillful actions, the things that are having unskillful consequences for you in the future, which is also the reason why there is all this worrying and fear coming up in our mind, is that it's like the sutta on the lump of salt. Now I can't remember the reference for this, but if you remember to type maybe lump of salt into the search, you will find the sutta. In Pali, it's called Lonapala Sutta. And in there, the Buddha says, if your bad actions are like salt, if your good actions like water, if you put a lump of salt into a glass of water, you can really feel the saltiness. But if you put the same lump of salt into a bucket of water, it's less. And if you put the same lump of salt into a big swimming pool, even less. Into a big river, even less, right? But that doesn't mean those sodium chloride atoms have disappeared. Yeah, those bad karmas are still there waiting, maybe to bear consequences, but the chances of them coming up are reduced by the number of water. So this is important. So instead of sitting around having guilty and remorse and regret about things, do something about it. So again, because this is so important, especially for everybody, but especially if you're interested in making progress on your spiritual path, making progress with your meditation, dealing with your guilt, regrets, and remorse is number one. So therefore, this is important. So accept, acknowledge, forgive, and let go. You do it with wisdom, not with willpower. Yeah, so I explained already how to do this. Previous talks are lining up very nicely with this one to give you the necessary right view that is required to do this process. And having done that, then you can also work on making good karma, yeah, making good things. And this is helpful not only to overcome that very thing, but in general, doing good is necessary for making progress. So not to worry so much what you do from now onwards. This is the important thing. So doing that, give your attention and energy into that. And the other thing, that why guilt and remorse and regret is so bad, is every time you bring it up in your mind, it's as if you've done that action again, yeah, and again and again, and there's no point. You may have only killed an animal once, yeah. Sometimes people have regrets for maybe killing a cockroach or something small even, but every time you feel guilty about it, it's as if in your mind, mental karma, you're doing it. That's how the karma operates. That's why if you've done one action, it's not one consequence. It's 100 or 1,000 times, because it's the people's nature to have regrets and remorse. So don't do that with the bad karma. But with the good karma, the Buddha says, bring it up. Yeah, this is why. So if you've done good, keep remembering it, bringing it up. That's why in the meditation today, I reminded you to bring up your goodness, bring up anything that you've done and make a habit of it. Yeah, bring it up. So chaganusati or mudita, rejoicing in the goodness of yours or others, is very helpful. That actually also make much of your good actions. Yeah, and this is helpful as well. So we have to be skillful about these things. But sometimes you hear or do something good and forget about it. Otherwise, you become proud. That's kind of silly. Of course, you don't think about in a way that your nose is really high and you become really proud. Not in that way. In a very nice way, you think, wow, how wonderful I had the opportunity to do this. And keep remembering this and fill your mind up with that instead of going the other direction of focusing on your unskillful actions, right? So I'm not telling here to forget about those. I'm telling you to deal with them in the proper way. And after having done that, leave it aside and focus on the good. This is really important. Now, having said that, now I'm also going to say a very beautiful sequence that comes up again and again in the suttas, at least 20, 30 times. And this is how the Buddha describes the meditation psychology, how the meditation works. Yeah, this is really, really important. And if you want a reference for this one of the places it comes up is in Numerical Discourses, book number 10, maybe sutta number 2 or 3. It's called Na Chetana Karaniya Sutta in Pali, right? And this is about the passive way how this is working and where you have to do work. So the Buddha says, when you sit down to meditate, the most important thing you may have to make sure is that you do not have regrets and remorse in your mind. Yeah, so this is really, really important. This is a starting point. So that doesn't mean that people who have are perfect people only can meditate. Not at all. Yeah, because Buddha understands every single person as yet unenlightened, trying to learn to meditate and meditating, have done plenty things that are unskillful. That's human beings. Yeah, that's us. That's all of us. But what he's telling is do the right things, the right process, and let that go in the right way. And then once you've dealt with it, then your mind is okay. So when you do not, and that is also why the Buddha really encourages refrain. So the very active thing that you need to do if you want to meditate well is refraining, yeah, from doing the bad, stopping yourself, right? Bringing up that mindfulness to keep your virtue, keep your sila, yeah, keep the precepts and do the right thing. And being good, doing the right things needs effort, yeah, especially to stop needs effort. That is where we really put effort, really put energy. Outside of your meditation, outside, any time, all of your wakeful moments, yeah, to take care of yourself, especially your mind, how it behaves, how it does things. Taking care of that is where we actively put in energy to look after your mind, to stop it from doing things that you are later going to regret as much as possible. So you put in that, so you take care of yourself. So when there is no regrets, guilt, and remorse in your mind, then the mind has gladness. And you know this, when the mind is free from those things, your mind is glad, it's uplifted. The Pali word for this is pamoja. These are the times you can see when your mind is really up, alert, your eyes are bright, you feel great, there's energy inside of you. Yeah. This is also the feeling that you have when you've done something good. Yeah. When you're being good, when you've done something good, when you're happy, when you're joyous, this is the state of your mind. It's uplifted, it's not down and depressed. That is the kind when you have guilt. So when you have gladness, the Buddha says, you do not have to exert will and say, may my mind have joy. Yeah, you don't have to do anything. All you got to do is stay there. And also when you have gladness in the mind, the present moment is pleasant. This is the beautiful thing. The reason why it's so hard to watch the breath or stay with a simple meditation object is for when we have these little guilt and remorse and regrets, and when we've not lived our day well, then the present moment is unpleasant. When the present moment is unpleasant, it's really hard to stay there. But if that is not the case, when you do not have regrets and remorse, when there is gladness in your mind, it's really easy to stay here. It's really pleasant to be here. So you can stay with your meditation object quite effortlessly. It is an effortless, very passive process. So when you stay like that, the mind starts to settle down. Mind starts to build up the energy, the natural energy of the mind. The mind is, everybody's mind has incredible potential, incredible energy inside of it. But we just spoil it by doing things, getting in the way. But as you stay there, the mind builds up energy. It's that energy that we feel as joy. It's both that energy coming up and also the hindrances going down. Yeah. As you're staying down, so you can see directly one of the biggest hindrances for meditation is this restless mind, right? This is what everybody says, my mind so restless. So restlessness is coming from those things, as we said. So when that is not there, it settles down, all of the hindrances are going down. That is also the reason why we have joy, piti, coming up in the mind. And when the mind has that joy, piti or tranquility, the body settles down. And that is called tranquility. Yeah. That's kaya passaddhi. That's that beautiful feeling of your body almost disappears. You can't feel it. It becomes so at ease. It's like a cloud. It's like you're floating. It's quite nice state. Yeah. Kaya passaddhi, when that comes up, it's really beautiful. It's very settling. Usually our bodies are painful and difficult and heavy. But when the joy comes up in the mind, then it leads to, without having to exert any will, naturally, very passively, kaya passaddhi starts to happen. And once that happens, then it reflects back into the mind and it is going to a very happy, beautiful state. The word is happy, but it's sukhino, sukhino, sukha. Yeah, that's a very beautiful state of mind, having gathered incredible energy, incredibly, and also the hindrances have now really gone down. And then the Buddha says, Sukhino chittang samadhiyati. So from happiness, the mind enters the samadhi, that is the jhana states. So these words are very common, right? Happy, joy. You think, you have ice cream also, you can be happy and joyous. Listening to a really nice song also, you think. So these words are very hard to understand, but how do you know? It's the sukha state in meditation. This is important to also know, not to dilute these things down, not to think that these are really everyday states. They're not everyday states. They are not just the simple happiness and you think, now I'm in samadhi and I've now had jhana. So how do you know that you have that sukha state in your mind? And this is when, if you've been able to stay with your meditation object, let's say if it is your breath, it comes to a point, it's not the breath disappears, but it comes to a point, the breath happens, it's as if somebody else is doing it, somebody else is watching it. Yeah, it happens by itself. In the beginning, there is still some involvement. There is you somehow being there, being observing and doing it. But it comes to that point where the breath becomes effortless. Yeah, it is happening. And this is where the Ajahn Brahm calls this state beautiful breath. Yeah, there's something beautiful. You feel it's quite different. Yeah, you're still with the breath, but it becomes another feeling. Yeah, and it's happening, and the mind starts to become quite bright. And this is the stage where what you hear as nimittas, the beautiful lights or any other form of nimittas, can also start to appear. So this is the sukha state. And then from there, the mind enters to deep stillness, jhana states. So you can see this is a very passive, beautiful state. So while you're starting to doing the meditation, there is not a lot for you to do. The main thing is to just to stop and to stay and allow the process to happen and not stop yourself from getting in the way. That's your main job. Yeah, stop and doing that. But what was the most important critical factor at the start is not having guilt, regrets, and remorse. Yeah, because so therefore that is why this is so very important for us to get out of that habit of just going on and on and on, feeling guilty and having regrets and remorse in our mind. Yeah, so it is really important to do your bit. And now you know the technique, now you know what to do, now you know how to do it. And then you will still see it may be a bit difficult at times. Again, how do you prepare yourself? The same old things, yeah? Start with generosity, yeah? Being kind, uh, making somebody else happy, those kinds of stuff to uplift your mind, because you need mental energy. You need that kind of joy in your mind to be able to do that work, especially this kind of work where you have to deal with things that are difficult, right? Things that you have guilt, things that you have regrets and remorse are difficult things that are not easy for you to look at, even to accept. Even you want to push it under the carpet kind of thing. So if you want to bring this up, don't do it at a time when your mind is low down and depressed, right? Then it will be counterproductive. That's not the time. If you really want to deal with these things once and for all and move on, first of all, focus on building up your energy, building up your mind to that point, yeah, by doing good things, yeah, generosity, then being a good person from now onwards to your best ability, keeping your 5 precepts. If you can't keep 5, try and keep your 4 in a good way, yeah. So, doing like that. So dana, sila, and then bhavana, yeah, do little bits of meditation and prepare and bring up that joy states. And when you feel good and ready, when your mind has that energy, that is the time then later, slowly, you really deal with this with wisdom. So build up your right view as well, right? Before you have to deal with big issues, build up right view, learn suttas. How do you build up right view? By listening to good teachings, listening to the teachings of the Buddha, really the suttas, yeah? So learn your suttas, memorize them, remember them, apply them into your life, yeah? So doing that is where you can build up right view, because the nutriment for right view is yoniso manasikara, yeah, reflecting these things. So do that and prepare yourself, and once you feel ready, then deal with these issues once and for all and move on. Yeah, this is very important topic, very important thing to do. Michael, you had a question?
I was just gonna ask, also like Hiri Ottappa,
Yes,
things are like subtly different to
right.
Richard.
Yes. So for the recording and for the if you didn't hear, the question from the floor here is about Kukucha and the difference between Hiri and Ottappa. So Hiri Ottappa is moral shame and moral fear. There are other translations as well, but the general idea is having that kind of feeling, shame or something like that in your mind for unskillful things. Yeah. So this is very important. Again, shame is different to guilt, isn't it? Yeah, shame is a little bit different to guilt, but it is important. Shame comes before, yeah, you see, oh, this will be like this, but shame can come after too, after having done something. But shame is that you don't want other people to find out you've done this kind of feeling as well, right? You feel ashamed of having done something. But also that's the moral shame is you already know before doing that. So this is hiri. Before doing that, you know, if you did that, others will be not happy. Wise people will criticize you, and you don't want, because you already know this is not nice. This you feel ashamed to do already. Yeah, it's different for guilt. So, you know, parents feeling not doing the right thing. Some of those things are not really shameful things. Yeah. They're just things that you regret about, you didn't do, or this happened, or whatever to me, and you have regrets. But shame is really about breaking precepts and doing something really unskillful that the wise would really later reprove you. So the Buddha says this is important. Yeah, so to really reflect about actions and even learn from the previous ones, or learn from other people's actions, things that are not skillful. So to have that moral shame is very, very helpful to stop you from doing that. The next one is moral fear, because that is remembering that even you might think it's something small, but still, small or big, there is karmic consequences. Yeah, so karmic consequences, reflecting where this is going to lead. Again, having a good amount of sutta knowledge is really important to understand the karmic consequences of our actions, yeah, our unskillful things, what you do and where that can lead you to. It's really important. It is forgetting this that you do things. Yeah, we forget. It's not in our mindfulness. So it's really important to bring up these things, remembering the karma and vipaka, yeah, actions and consequences. It is if we remember this, would we ever do anything? Even snap back at somebody at the very least, tell a white lie even, you know, there's so many levels. But all of these things, because we don't reflect about it, you think it's okay because everybody does it, so we do it. But no, the Buddha says Hiri and Ottappa is actually really starting point. Again, a very beautiful sutta is the Sati Sampajanya Sutta. Again, I mentioned this earlier as well. It is on the Numerical Discourses, Sutta number 883 or 881. I also did give a Dhamma talk on this one a couple of years ago on a Vesak Dhamma talk. That is a very nice sequence. It starts with mindfulness and clear comprehension, and then leads to Hiri-ottappa, because you can't have moral shame and moral fear without a certain amount of mindfulness, right? You need awareness, some mindfulness, but with wisdom, yeah? Otherwise, somebody would think, oh, it's okay to kill cockroaches. It's okay to, you know, kill animals. It's okay to do this and it's okay to do that. But, you know, that's the thing. So you need wisdom. So you need awareness with wisdom. So that is that Sati Sampajanya is the starting point of the spiritual path, followed by Hiri and Ottappa. There's another beautiful sutta called Nagarupama Sutta, which I will take a whole Dhamma talk on another time, because it's a very, very beautiful talk about how to protect yourself in the Dhamma path. Because one of the things that we see also as we start practicing, a lot of danger starts to come up. A lot of problems, a lot of hurdles, a lot of barriers. Have you experienced this and thought that you are the only one? Welcome to join the club. This is quite common. Yeah, the moment you start doing, it's almost as if the Mara's armies are coming at you. So enemy armies try to come and take you away. Yeah, it is there. So how to protect yourselves from all those enemy armies? It's a beautiful, beautiful sutta. And in that sutta also, this Hiri-ottappa is shown as the very peripheral, most important first point. Yeah, so really, really important. So having shame and fear for doing the wrong is very important, because the Buddha's way is not doing it and having guilt and then confessing again and again and again, but try to build up mindfulness as much as possible from the moment you know the Dhamma, and work on refraining, work on doing the good as much as possible. But from time to time, you'll lose it. And at that time, just apply the others, and instead of regretting, deal it in the right way. But know that karmic consequences are going to be there. So this is really important. Thank you for that question, because it's actually an important point to remember in this occasion. Okay, there's a question. How does one distinguish between what is right and wrong action when it's not so clear, especially when one person may think it is right and another person thinks it is wrong? Yes, it's a good question, yeah. It is a good question, and some things are quite mixed, yeah. But there are good guidelines, yeah. But also important things you feel the harm, yeah. Sometimes it's a denial, sometimes it's a justification, sometimes it's a defilement, sort of cover it up. But whether something is harmful or not, you feel it, yeah, you feel it, unless you have a psychopath chemistry on your brain. I think then it's a bit hard probably to understand this, then you can't do very much. But this is the beautiful thing, yeah, it is true, sometimes it's very hard and different people might think differently. So we are not talking about these kinds of debatable things, because sometimes what is right or wrong, it can be like in one culture, to somebody in the eye as you make eye contact while you are making communication is the right thing. For another culture, if you do that, it's the wrong thing. It's disrespectful. So we are not talking about these kinds of things. These are just simple things. They are not immoral. They are not really harmful in a big way or anything like that. So those are the debatable ones. But other things like killing, stealing, adultery, they are lying, a lot of these things are quite clear. So this is where it is difficult, but if there is harm, if there is harm for yourself, harm for the others, or harm for both. And this can be known by even a 7-year-old child. That's why even a 7-year-old is capable of becoming fully enlightened. At the time of the Buddha, they were the youngest. And the Buddha himself gave a talk to his own son Rahula. This is in the Ambalattika Rahulovada Sutta, very beautiful teaching to his little son. This comes up and he says to his little son, before you do something by body, like an action, see whether you reflect and see, is this going to be harmful for myself? Is this going to be harmful for the other person? Or is it going to be harmful for both? But sometimes you don't know. It's hard to know. So while doing it, also pay attention. While you're doing it, see, is that harming myself? Is that harming to the other? If you can see that it's while doing it, stop. Sometimes while doing it also you can't see. Then the Buddha says, having done it, reflect back and see, was that harmful for myself and was that harmful for another? Then you can see. So then you learn. If you can't see, well, you just work on with mindfulness, with right view up until a point comes that you can start seeing unskillful. And also that is why the Buddha did not teach some people. And you wonder, why didn't the Buddha teach some people? It is those people who can't tell good and bad, yeah, skillful and unskillful, or wholesome and unwholesome. This is the minimum requirement that is needed for us to walk the path, that very, very basic, like even at the 7-year-old's level, to be able to have a feeling and understanding about what is wholesome and unwholesome, what is harmful and hurtful, or what is skillful. This is minimal requirement is necessary to start the path, but everybody who has that, then you can actually move forward. So yeah, that's what I can say about this. It's a good question. So reflection is really important, because sometimes we have such strong views about certain things, and our strong views cover up the truth. Yeah, our strong views stop us from seeing things, yeah, that are harmful and hurtful. So this is where, so it is difficult when we have, that's why the Buddha says wrong view is the most dangerous thing. Like even if you are a serial killer, you still have hope if you are able to let go of your wrong view and build up right view. Yeah, but if you have wrong view and stuck in your wrong view, really no hope. Yeah, so, and also if your mental faculties are not developed enough to know good and bad, again, there is no hope. So those are the kind of people that the Buddha actually didn't speak to, because their level of defilements are so very strong. The darkness that they're in is so extremely strong that they cannot be helped. So then we can't do very much about it. But I think for most of us here, this is probably not going to be a huge problem. And don't worry about the other people. Well, that's their problem. Just about ourselves. Yeah. If we can do what you can. Yeah. That's what I can say for that. Yes. So the question is about is abortion really taking life? So there's lots of talks about this, lots of things about this. It's very, very unclear. Yeah. In the sense that, of course, if it is quite late, that's definitely everybody is sure about it. But if it is a very early abortion, it may not be taking life. It's very hard to know. There's one of the sutras where the Buddha talks about when it's coming into when the consciousness comes into the mother's womb, is in the Maha Tanha Sankaya Sutta, that is Majjhima Nikaya 38. So, but according to that sutta, at the time of conception, it's already coming. Yeah. But it is hard to know. It could be that it can come at that time or later time. It could be even variable, and it's never sure, because sometimes maybe it's still starting to work and then a consciousness might come. So because it is not known, it's very hard to know. But if it was really early, there was not really a well-developed being, that it's just a bunch of cells, almost like a part of the mother's body. Whereas once it started to build up into being a much more of a being, if that happened, well, that's the thing. So that's taking life. So this is also good. So some of the people, you would know that the abortion happened at a very early time, then no need to have guilt and worry about it. But for others, you had to do it later. So it's also okay. And then there are other times that it's actually was to, like the really interesting thing that Ajahn Brahm has mentioned in the past was this situation where there is a woman pregnant with twins. And there is a very big complication with the pregnancy. And the gynecologist advised that if they abort one twin, this is quite late at the pregnancy as well, if you abort one twin, the other one baby and the mother will survive. But if you don't do that, there is big chance all three of them will die. So what do you do at that time? There is death inevitable. One death versus three deaths. What do you do? Either way, there is going to be death. Yeah. So what decision are you going to make? And of course, it's all relative. Nobody can say for sure whether this is going to happen or not. But then the way to go about it is just to find out, get multiple opinions. Yeah, go and investigate and see and check out. And at the end of the day, you have to make an informed decision and deal with the consequences. So it will be a black and white karma. So it will be gray. But if you didn't do it also, when you've been advised that 3 people would die, it's also important, yourself and the 2 babies. That's also doesn't seem quite right. So some things in life, the decisions that we have to make are not so straightforward. Even the advice the doctors have to give are not so straightforward and very difficult, especially as doctors as well, to tell this information, give advice and stuff. And then the doctors might be feeling guilty how many women you had to advise for an abortion, because sometimes you had to have an abortion because there was a complication and the mother's life, even if it is not like twins and saving the baby, but it is saving the mother's life. Just to save your own life, you had to abort your baby sometimes. So how do you feel about that? But you have to sometimes do these things. So that's why. So it's really important to have a good understanding, investigate why did you do it. Yeah. So this is where another very, very important thing. Sometimes we feel guilty, and regret and remorse are there for things that it shouldn't be there. Yes, a precept may have been broken, but why did you break that precept? How do you break that precept? How do you bend it? So remember and reflect and see at that time that I lied, maybe, yeah, when I said that lie. Where did that lie come from? Did it come from a very selfish desire from my side for my own benefit so that I can get something, gain something? Or did it come from a kind, generous heart? Did it come from ill will and negativity that I lied to somebody to make them feel terrible and bad? Or did it actually come from compassion? Did it come from fear? Did you lie because you were so fearful? Or did it come from non-fear, being very brave? Or did it come from stupidity? This is the hard one. Yeah. Have you done your work, wisdom, asked the wise people, done your research, and did it or not? Again, a very beautiful simile story, a real story that Ajahn Brahm said this, is that there was a couple. So the husband had a very complicated illness, and he had to go for a surgery, only 50% chance of survival, or maybe even less chance of survival. So the chances of him dying is quite serious in that kind of illness. So he was also in the hospital, and he had another roommate, and that person also had exactly the same situation. So again, similar kind of survival rate, very low. So his friend, who he made good friends with while they were in the hospital, went for surgery first. And unfortunately, that person, the first person, his friend, died during the surgery. This is common because that's the high percentage died during the surgery. So this guy was going to go for surgery. So he asked from his wife, how did my friend go? How was the surgery? So at that time, the wife knew that his friend has died, but his husband was now about to go for surgery. So the wife lied and said, "Oh, he did really well. He's good. He's recovering in the recovery room." Right? Because he didn't want his husband to be upset, sad, and go into the surgery. And if he dies in that kind of mind state, it's not going to be good for him, right? So the wife didn't lie because of any kind of didn't come from a bad place, came from all the good reasons to right? But still, it's a lie, yeah. So, but she was feeling really bad and guilty. And she came up to Ajahn Brahm and said, I have a big confession. I have lied, and I lied in this occasion. Was that right or wrong? Of course, a lie is a lie. So not encouraging people to lie and find all kinds of excuses, but see why you did it, yeah? Whether you came from a very strong selfish desire, whether you came from ill will and negativity, whether you came from fear, whether you came from stupidity, yeah? If you didn't, well, it's still going to have some karmic consequence, but it's going to be gray, probably a lighter shade of gray. So also be careful when you start. So no need to feel guilty for these things. And no need to, if such a thing has happened, because some people harbor so much regret and guilt for these things. But you come from the right place. Yes, still unskillful, but sometimes life's challenges are so difficult. Yes, decisions are so difficult, and you can only do your very best with the limited wisdom that we all have until we get enlightened. Yeah, we are still in the dark, stumbling over with shadows. So you have to understand and deal with these things in the right way. So very many people harbor guilt, regrets, and remorse for things that they don't need to do this. Yeah. So this is important because it really blocks your meditation and progress on the path. Yeah. And also takes you into bad destinations. So if you read a lot of near-death experience stories and stuff, you can see it's your own guilt that you punish yourself. You take yourself down the wrong track sometimes when you don't even need to. So it's a really, really important topic, this one. So, yeah, take care of yourself, be wise, do the right thing, move on. Yeah.